Stride TV is now available to download on the App Store. Watch exclusive videos like Femme Forte, Inside Drum Corps, Charity Chase, and so much more. Go to stridetv.com and use code FemmeForte to get 50% off premium features like community chat, live Q&A with me, and behind-the-scenes content. Stride TV is home of the arts, a dedicated media platform for the arts community.
I look at the girls all the time and go, why do you think you can't play? Why do you think you're not good enough? Why do you not think you can be drum major? Why do you not think you can lead the drum line? You know, and it's always just something within. And so maybe that the teachers I grew up with were so passionate about instilling all of those things and confidence and empowerment into us. Maybe it's just our time to push it forward.
Welcome to Femme Forte, a podcast where we celebrate women in music and performing arts. I'm your host, Amanda DeFries. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another season of Femme Forte. On this episode, we're kicking things off with Dr. Myra Rhoden. Dr. Myra Rhoden currently serves as the founder of Athena Music and Leadership Camp. We talk about her journey into music education, as well as the story behind the creation of Athena Camp. Athena Camp is an all-girls music camp that provides transformative experiences and enhances musical excellence and nurtures confidence, communication abilities, and self-awareness. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Femme Forte. Today, I have a very special guest on. Today, we have Myra Rhoden. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we are doing a very special episode because we are here in Athens, Georgia at GMEA. I am so excited to have you on the show, not only because of my love for Athena Camp, but for you as a person. So I know who you are. Go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about your background and how you got into music and music education.
Okay. Well, I am Myra Rhoden. I'm originally from Tuskegee, Alabama. I started playing my clarinet in 7th grade and did high school band, of course, there. Went to the University of Alabama for undergraduate and for my master's degree, and went to the University of Southern Mississippi for my doctorate in conducting. And I've been a high school band director or music teacher for the last 30 years. And so 27 of those years have been at a high school, either as head director or assistant. My first 3 years teaching, I actually taught middle school and was assisted at the high school that was there, but my main job was middle school. So 30 years of teaching, mostly in Alabama and Georgia.
That's amazing. What instrument did you originally start playing?
I started playing clarinet. I guess before that, I started playing piano when I was little, but clarinet in the band.
And what made you passionate about music and the arts?
My high school band director was like an extended family member, I guess you can say, to a lot of people in our community. His goal was to expose everyone to everything in the world and using music to do that. So that's kind of what I do, or what I try to do now with my own students. So he was the one that, showed us about Allstate and honor bands, and we traveled and we did all the things that people in a small rural town in Alabama aren't supposed to do, He actually taught my uncles and my aunt, and he was like everybody's dad.
Yeah.
Band was the thing to do in high school and in my community. So we just started, it wasn't, do you want to be in band? It was, what instrument are you going to play? Because it was an expectation. So, of course, there's music in my household. My grandfather played for the church. I played piano. I actually played for church as well. Don't sing very well, but I could play the piano, and then started there. And when it was time, it was just time to join the band. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and I feel very similarly to that. I mean, band was the thing to do for me, and I fell in love with it. And as a percussionist, I just loved playing music and getting to share music with everybody else. But the thing for me is, growing up, I knew I didn't necessarily want to be a part of the education part of it or be in the teaching aspect of it. So for you, what was that driving force that was like, no, I want to teach music and I want to be a part of that, beginning process for students?
It's an interesting question because I didn't always want to be a teacher. I didn't always want to be a band director. I come from a long line of teachers of some sort. My mom, she's a librarian, but she also teaches classes about how to use the library and how to do that to college students. My aunt's a teacher. My grandfather was a college professor. And there are a lot of teachers in my family. And so it was just like, okay, it's a thing to do, either be a librarian or be a teacher, because everybody was one or the other. I actually set out to be a math teacher.
Oh, wow.
I was a math major for a semester. And then I'm like, nah, that's not what I want to do. So went into music, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah. And what's the most fulfilling part that you love? Like, what makes you walk in the band hall every day and like be like, this is my favorite thing to do. I love my job.
It's actually coming to conferences like this and seeing former students who are either in college learning to be band directors, who are teachers who came through the program, or not necessarily those who just decided that music would be, their career. It's the other students who come back as well. So, when you told me this, yeah, you were right. Or, remember when we practiced this and long hours and all of this? Yeah, that kind of prepared me for the real life. We're like, yes, that's the whole point. So watching the students come back is always a great thing for me.
Yeah. And one of the great things that inspires me about you is how much of a leader you are.
Oh.
And as we know in our current space, we're seeing more of it, but not a lot of women are in leadership, specifically in our space. So what would you say for you in terms of moving up the ladder and becoming a leader in your space for women who want to do that as well? There's so many questions around it. How did you even start? What was the journey and path that you took? And yeah, we'll just start with there.
My focus has always been on the students in front of me. So, try to have the best band program for them, try to give them the best experiences. And I guess others noticed, and more things were offered, and more experiences were offered, more opportunities were offered. But at the end of the day, it started with making sure the kids in front of me had what they needed. We did everything to expose them to the world, to different music, to anything that helped them become a better person. So it's not like I said, all right, by age this, I want to do this. And I mean, the only thing I ever had, say, a desire to do was get my doctorate, but I never said, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Those opportunities just kind of came, and like, oh, that would be kind of cool. At first it's like, really? Like, you're considering me for this position? Or, and it just kind of happened, I know that some people may not think that that's true.
Yeah.
But if you focus, I get asked, like, how do you get, to do honor bands, or how do you get to do that? Well, at the end of the day, the kids that you see every day, you have to make sure that you're giving them what they need. And people will notice your work. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah. And you mentioned a very good point on our conversation on the way over here was quiet leadership. Mm-hmm. And you led a talk earlier today at the GMEA conference about empowering young women and young girls. And you talk about the important piece is recognizing what quiet leadership is, especially in young women. Do you think for you and the journey that you've made to get here, quiet leadership was a large part of that?
I don't know. Well, maybe at the beginning. The older I get, the more vocal I become. And because of that, I may be taken the wrong way sometimes. Sometimes I may be looked at as questioning versus asking a question for me to learn something. Mm-hmm. And I have to make sure that the people around me know that about me. Like, I'm going to ask you questions, but it's not because I'm trying to poke holes in everything. Yeah. It's because I want to know your process, because I want to learn how to do it myself.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that's really answering your question, but maybe at the beginning I do observe a lot, and that's how we learn to teach. That's how we learn to do what we're doing, because we're observing, master teachers and people who do what you do really well, and try to take from them and then apply it to yourself. So I guess that part would be a little bit of the choir leadership thing. But then as you come into your own voice, you have to, be a little bit more vocal.
Yeah.
So you can help those others who may be quiet leaders to come out of their shell so they can do what they need to do too.
Yeah. And how did you find your voice? How did you learn to become more vocal?
I think I'm a product of my community growing up in Tuskegee. The older I get, the more people I meet, I find out that was a very unique place to grow up. It was at the center of the civil rights movement. We had lots of people who looked like me, who were in leadership positions. Where I was born was the only Black hospital in the state of Alabama. So I literally was born around Black doctors and nurses and things like that. And people who didn't grow up in that community didn't necessarily see that. So I saw excellence all the time in everything. And we were always told, you can do what you want to do. You can be what you want to be. And that was, instilled in us at a very early age. And so you look back and you're in Tuskegee, Alabama, where, when I taught there as well. It was 98% free and reduced lunch at that school. Wow. But you wouldn't know it because the teachers didn't treat the kids like, it was poverty, which is a little bit of what that was. Everybody could do and be anything they wanted. And so I don't know if I ever was a shy person that came out of the shell to find the voice. I think it was more of, I didn't have a choice because my teachers told me this is what you can do. And so we believed it. And we went out and, a lot of my classmates are very successful. A lot of people that I grew up are very successful. And I think it's just because of those teachers who told us, we could do and be anything we wanted to do.
Yeah, I absolutely believe very strongly in that. And I do think a lot of the people that I looked up to and what has helped me become more confident as a person has been because of that. Yeah. Femme Forte is sponsored by Beam Music. Are you tired of making copies and printing your music? Beam is the app that will make you actually like distributing music. Organize with collections, create set lists, keep track of time, and share powerful annotations on your sheet music. You know that feeling when you call up a stand tune and everyone frantically looks for the music? Those days are over. Activate live mode to automatically connect everyone in the ensemble to your device. When you select a piece of music, everyone's individual parts for that song are instantly displayed on their personal device, all without the need for internet. Head to udb.live/beam to have your entire music library everywhere. Beam. It's the sheet. So I just want to deep dive into Athena Camp.
Okay.
Because I think I 100% believe in the mission of what you're doing. And based on what I've gotten to know about you and the camp, I just think more people need to know about it. So as I know a lot about it, go ahead and tell our listeners what it is, because I'm just so excited to deep dive into it.
All right. Well, so we started Athena 15 years ago, which is crazy to me that this is our 15th year. I have been fortunate to go out. I'll tell you the story. I've been fortunate to go out and do honor bands and clinics and things like that, especially at the honor bands, especially at the high school level. I would always have girls to come up afterwards and say, "Are you really the band director? Are you the marching band director?" "Yeah, I do the whole thing." "Really? You're in charge?" "Yes, I am. Is there a question behind this?" And it turned out that it wasn't necessarily that they didn't believe. It was that they didn't have the confidence in themselves. And so they would then say, "Well, I am the only trumpet player in my section who's a girl, and I was just named section leader. Can you tell me what to do to control the boys?" Or, "Can you tell me what to do to get them to listen to me?" Or especially girls who may be small in stature, they were especially the ones that, I'm so short, how am I going to get people to, and so I would go home and I'd tell my husband, I'm like, this happens a lot and it doesn't matter where I am. It was the same story. And he is very solution driven. Mm-hmm. And he finally looked at me one day and said, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, what do you mean what am I going to do about it? I'm telling you the story of what happened. He's like, no, you're coming back with the same story. What are you going to do about it? And that night, we just brainstormed. And next thing you know, Athena was born. And so we're like, well, what if we brought the kids together and had like some kind of camp? And yeah, we can have, all women teaching and no guys involved at all. And what are we going to call this? And, we're Googling stuff. We're like, Athena, the Greek goddess of the arts and wisdom. And that's what that's what we were trying to do. The Greek, put the arts and wisdom together and build leaders that can go out in any field. And so that's where it started. So our first camp had about 30 girls. And it was watching the kids come in from day one to how they leave in day 5. You almost kind of have to be there to see the transformation because, sometimes they're there because their parents don't want them to go to a sleepaway camp where boys are, or their band director saw something and told the parents about it. And so a lot of the kids come in like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, if I want to be here. This is when we first started. But by the end of the day, when they realize, oh, the conductor's a woman. Oh, all of my teachers are women. Oh, I can have fun and the boys aren't around and nobody's picking on me and nobody's, and it's just a good time. And so it's kind of evolved over the years. We make sure we do music theory. We make sure we do conducting. Watching them get in front of the group for the first time, we open it up to everyone. Come see, what it's like to lead a band. And just the eyes are like, wow, they actually cut off when, yes, you can do this. But then we do empowerment sessions and leadership sessions. So that's the difference between us and a typical band camp that's just music focused. We do about half and half music and leadership. We still give a concert. We do chamber music, which for a lot of kids is a first, depending on what school they come from. And we have a good time. We give them an opportunity to be themselves. And it's just great.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And with the growth of Athena Camp, it's not just in one state, right? You have it in multiple places around the country.
So we had a camp in Minnesota pre-pandemic. And so now we're kind of on the rebuilding part. So we're just doing our camp in Atlanta this summer in June. And then we have 2 one-day events. So one's going to be here in Atlanta at the Woodruff Art Center. The Atlanta Symphony Orchestra has been a partner with us, for several years. And then we're going up to Charlotte, North Carolina, to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte for a one-day summit. And we're doing that this year. So those are our 3 events, plus our online event, our honor band event.
Yeah, I love that it's more than just a camp. It's a mission, right? Yes. And I love what it represents in that. Because I think a lot of times we can think kind of small and think like, oh, it's just a camp that's held once a year. But I love that, like, right now you have a booth at GMEA and we're spreading the word. And it's like becoming a year-round thing. And so I'm so excited to see where that takes you in the next 2, 3, 5 years.
We've had a lot of interest in different parts of the country that want the program there. So I'm going to have a little bit more time, now. And so now we're going to look to see where we can go and do some things.
Yeah. You talk a lot about empowering young women and the fulfillment and the great things and feelings that you get from seeing these young women grow from day 1 to day 5. But what was the biggest source of inspiration for you? And I know you talked a little bit about it, about being in those situations of doing something about it. But is there anything like personal to you or how it applies to your life of really pushing Athena and being very passionate about it?
Okay, that's a hard one. Oh, gosh. Okay, you're going to have to ask that again.
Yeah. So was there any personal experiences that you have faced, or has women empowerment just been a thing you've been passionate about your whole life that makes Athena so important to you personally?
I think it's not necessarily something that's happened to me personally. It's the kids that I see every day and trends that you see with the middle schoolers and high schoolers every day. And then also seeing those things as you go out around the country to do things. And so, the confidence level, the self-esteem level, and it's never really a skill problem. It's confidence in the skills. And, I look at the girls all the time and go, why do you think you can't play? Why do you think you're not good enough? Why do you not think you can be drum major? Why do you not think you can lead the drum line? Yeah. And it's always just something within. And so I don't know if it's been a personal experience because of how I grew up, I never really felt that.
Yeah.
I know it's weird. I never really felt that there wasn't a space for me anywhere. And even though there are a lot of spaces I go into and I'm the only one that looks like me, but I think because of how I grew up and, as I talk through this, maybe that's it. Maybe that the teachers I grew up with were so passionate about instilling all of those things and confidence and empowerment into us. Maybe it's just our time to push it forward.
Exactly.
Into the other ones. Yeah. So maybe that's the answer.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot on the podcast, and it's a quote I will die on a hill on. It's called "With privilege comes responsibility." Mm-hmm. And I think, at least in my experience or the people that I know, I feel like, especially in women, we're all kind of adopted into this imposter syndrome from a very early age. Mm-hmm. And kind of how you mentioned and how you grew up, I think we all realize that we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and our upbringings were very different. And just how you said, like, being in a space where you were uplifted and empowered and pushing it forward to the next generation, I think is a really special and beautiful thing. And I think not a lot of people have a passion to do that or want to give back to move like the future forward, because essentially that is what we're doing. Is, we're all going to get older, and these students who are young are going to be the next generation in the next 10, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really, really cool to be able to really be a part. And I think kind of what you mentioned earlier, like teaching is a huge aspect of that, because we are, what do they say, crafting the young minds of tomorrow, as you said. But not only are you doing that from your teaching job, but you're also doing it from Athena, which I think speaks a lot about your character and who you are as a person. And yeah, I just think that it's a really beautiful thing. Thank you. Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask was, with Athena being like a 5-day camp, are there any, I'm sure you get this all the time, but are there any special stories that you can talk about that have happened throughout the time that you've done camp, of possibly like a really special student being life-changing in some way, shape, or form, or just like a really special moment that you'll never forget in some of the years that Athena Camp has happened?
There may be a couple. I know in my session today, in the audience was a student who attended the very first camp. And she's a band director right now. I reconnected with another student who was in the very first camp, who told me that the first time she'd ever really done music theory or conducting was at the summer camp. She is now working on her doctorate in music theory.
Wow.
Because she wants to be a music theory professor. And I saw her in Minnesota, and she saw that we were having a camp in Minnesota. She was going to school at the University of Minnesota at the time. And she came over that summer and talked to the kids who were at the camp. And they're like, you came to camp like 10 years ago. Oh my, you're old, But seeing, even last week I was here in Athens conducting one of the honor bands here. And the person who was my conducting assistant was a former camper.
Wow.
And I'm like, I know you. She's like, yes, I came to camp when she was in middle school. And now she's a sophomore music ed major. So seeing the kids years later is that, I guess like seeing my own students years later, that really helps to see. There are some kids who come in as sixth graders with tubas who can barely carry it, but they refuse to let anyone help them. And they are chugging along and doing their things. And there's one particular one who's now finishing her degree in music education, in tuba. It's just, and there's another, I remember one young lady who had really a lot of trouble playing her clarinet. And she was in middle school, I want to say maybe 6th or 7th grade. By senior year of high school, she was first year All-State.
Wow.
And so, you see those kids and those stories, and it's I guess that's what keeps us going. Because, you may not see it like right then and there, but years later down the road, especially when they say, hey, I remember coming to camp. Hey, I remember, this teacher, or I remember this experience. That kind of makes our day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another important aspect of the camp is what you call muses.
Yes.
Is college students who are essentially act as like camp counselors that not only get experience, leadership experience from kind of managing and running the camp, but also get hands-on teaching experience with the students. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
That actually started as a need for us to need volunteers to help run the camp. And then one day we told the volunteers, hey, we really want to make this a thing. And we need you to come up with a name. And so they went out and they came back and was like, we got it. Muse, because, and they gave the definition and all of that. We're like, that's perfect. And so the Muses actually came up with the name for the Muses. But, there's so much in music ed programs that you don't get. A lot of practical things like how to keep up with kids, walking across, a college campus without losing them, making sure everybody gets up. What do you do at night? How do you do bed check? And then, of course, helping, the music side tends to be the easy part. Mm-hmm. The teaching the music, because you're well trained in that, is everything else. Do you know how to set up chairs? Yeah. Let us teach you how to do this. Like, this is not just work, because all of us have done it before. But do you really know how to set up a bandstand? Mm-hmm. And some don't, because they've never had to do it before. Yeah. So it's like that practical information. And then they're able to come and network with us. We've had some college students to actually be hired by Athena staff members, by Athena faculty members to be their assistant directors, or they helped them, get positions in because they saw their work ethic at camp. And so they were able to, help assist their careers. But that's really the main thing, is to teach them the practical side of band directing, and not necessarily, this is how you teach an embouchure, because they get that in college.
Yeah. And a good thing that, or I guess something that I have heard from friends that I have who are currently in pursuing music education or who are in their first years of teaching, is a lot of them don't get that hands-on experience. Mm-hmm. I think, you at least in Texas, you have observations and you have student teaching, and then you're kind of just thrown into it. And I think it's really cool, as we all know, practice makes perfect. Right. I think it's really cool to utilize this as an opportunity to get that hands-on experience versus, and almost in a sense, not necessarily have that pressure, but learn in a very healthy environment. Because I think in like student teaching, obviously you're being graded how to teach, and then you're being put in real world situations. And I feel like as college students, they already have so much pressure on themselves to do well. And then even first 3-5 years of teaching, it's even more pressure. But I think with Athena Camp, not only are you getting that upliftment by being around the people who are kind of in the same position as you, but also if mistakes are made, like it's a safe space to make mistakes and you can learn from them and not necessarily be judged. And I think providing that positive uplifting environment is like a really healthy thing that I think a lot of people just don't see or like technically like miss out on.
Right. And we try to be as open to the college kids as well. You know, if we're doing something, then we say, okay, this is why this choice was made, or this is why this choice was not made, or how would you handle this situation? And then, you know, we'll poke holes in everything. You know, say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And they go, oh, like, yeah. And so they actually grow a lot in those 5 days too. But they're also rock stars. They're rock stars to those middle schoolers and those high schoolers, and they just love the fact that they have a friend that's in college. And the college students eat it up. They really do. They do a good job taking care of the kids. Of course, we train them on the things that we need them to do with the kids and logistics and everything. But they are truly rock stars to the kids, and it's a good time. It's a good time. On any given day, you can have a student who is 11 years old, just starting playing, all the way to folks like me who've been teaching for 30 years, all in the same space, all in different levels of their musicianship and their career. We try to make sure our faculty is like that. You know, you have some old folks like us, but then we do have some who've only been teaching 5 years, who've only been teaching 10 years. So everybody gets an array. And so our muses get a chance to talk to those teachers who are in different stages of their careers as well. And they get to hear our stories, and they get to share their stories and get feedback. And of course, they stay in touch with us afterwards, so they know they have mentors they can come to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you also have like guest clinicians or guest artists that also participate in this as well?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that the Atlanta Symphony has been a partner. We have had at least one musician from the Atlanta Symphony to come every year. One thing that we do is all of our, with the exception of the last concert, every concert is closed, only to the campers. So someone will come and do a recital, and then the kids will have a Q&A, and then they are rock stars. So they take the selfies, and they get the autographs and all the things. So, you know, we've had marine musicians to come in, ASO musicians. We've had some freelancers to come in as well, like brass quintets and things like that. And it's always great. And we try to, because we have some repeat campers, we try to do something different every single year. Mm-hmm. So we may have a jazz artist this year, but the next year it might be a woodwind quintet, and the next year it may be a brass quintet. And we've had a cello quartet before. So we just try to make it different and just expose the kids to greatness. Now, sometimes all of those musicians aren't necessarily women. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're guys. And that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
But if it's a quintet, and there's at least one woman, that person is a rock star to those kids who are there. And then they get the questions. What's it like playing with all the guys?
Yeah.
You're the only girl there. And so then those conversations are had like, yes, you can do this too. I was just like you in 6th grade band playing trombone.
Yeah, representation matters, as we all know, and I think especially in the space that you're creating. Mm-hmm. And truly and honestly, I mean, that's part of what this podcast is about, is providing those resources and showing other people that people can be in these roles in the music and the arts community. And these are the role models that I'm essentially creating for hopefully the audience that listens to this. And so I think it's great that you're doing that also on the Athena side, is showing that positive representation. And the cool thing is that you're doing the Q&A, which is a really important aspect. And I think that's really important because even sometimes when I go out and do live tapings of the podcast, I make that a very important aspect of the event of what I'm going to, because it's so I think in today's world, we are getting a lot more exposure to some things by content creation and the evolution of TikTok and social media. But how many times do you actually get to interact with that person? We can comment and DM all that we want, but chances are that's not 100% chance you're gonna get like an actual response back. So having that in-person connection of that person being right there and getting that advice, like that advice could change someone's life.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
So I think that's a really, really cool thing that you're doing, and I'm just so excited.
We have to get you to camp.
I please do, because I am so amped for it, and I would love to do anything I can to support it.
All right.
What would you say is, I guess, the biggest impact or the biggest takeaway that girls have leaving the camp?
Well, we hope that their takeaway is that they can do anything they want to do. And not necessarily in music. We're not necessarily there to train the next generation of band directors. Mm-hmm. We're there to say, hey, find your voice and then make it heard. Whether it's you may want to be student council president. You may, if you are interested in section leader, have the courage to go to your director and let him or her know that that's what you want to do. Even if it's, hey, what are some things I can do to make it better so I can be considered for this position? Mm-hmm. You have to have that self-confidence in order to be able to do that and to just speak up for yourself. And so hopefully, and we hear from kids and from parents that, that they're different when they come back from camp because they are, I don't want to use the word assertive because sometimes that can have a bad connotation, but they do have more confidence in their skills and what they're doing. And it's always great hearing the stories the next year. Like, all right, what are some of the things you learned at camp that you did last school year? Yeah. And how did that work out for you? And they're always, oh, yes, I did this and I did this. And these are the same ones who on day one of camp, they come in so shy. Now, don't get me wrong. We don't only have shy girls at the camp. We do have the outgoing ones. And sometimes we actually have to teach them to allow others to be heard. So it kind of goes both ways, because you have people are like this that want to be the seen and they want to be the loudest ones in the room. And it's kind of hard for them to allow others to shine. So we kind of have to teach them that too. If you're a leader, it's not about you. It's about the people you're leading and making sure those people get better. Yeah. And then ultimately, that's what it's all about. So it's a little bit of a balance doing that. And so, I guess the takeaways for some may be a little bit different depending on the skill set that they come in with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a really good thing about when you're a leader, it's not all about you. It's about letting others shine. And I see that so much in just me sitting here with you. Like, I know a lot of our conversation has been based around Athena Camp, right? And it clearly shows that like your almost purpose in life is to empower and serve others. And that's like a huge part of what this podcast is, because like, yes, it's my podcast, but at the end of the day, I want all the love and shine and spotlight on you. It's like, so like to be able to also understand that feeling of what it means to uplift others and to serve others in that way is super powerful. And I just absolutely love everything about this conversation. And that's why I was so excited to have you on this show. So we're actually about to wrap up here. Right. And so I have a couple lasting questions, and I'll warn, I know, I was like, I'll warn you, there might be a little tough. Okay. So I have 3 of them. They might be 2-parters, but first one being is, what does success mean to you personally in your life? Or what do you want success to mean to you?
That is a hard question. You're right. Oh, wow. I guess that goes back to what you just stated. Seeing people around me happy, but also learning how to take care of myself, because sometimes it's been a little bit of a struggle. I think that's success, seeing my husband happy, my son happy. And, people are like, you don't have daughters? No, I don't have. We have one son, but making sure, he has what he needs to go out into the world and do what he wants to do. I guess, if my students understand that I've given them as much as I can, and everything is in their best interest. Same with my family and my son, that everything that we do is in your best interest. I think that's a success. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was hard.
Well, get ready for the next one.
Uh-oh.
This
Okay.
one is a two-parter question. Who do you want to be, and what experiences do you want to create, whether that's for yourself or others?
At this point in my career, I want to be the one who helps others, like the young teachers who may be struggling with classroom management, or the young teachers who don't understand how someone could be doing this for 30 years. I guess that was me at one point. So as far as my career is concerned, I think that would be it. I've gone from needing to be mentored 100% of the time to now wanting to be that mentor for people. So, someone described it as being in the back half of your career. I'm like, oh gosh, really? So yeah, I think I would want to, I think that would be it. I think the pandemic has made me realize that experiences and time with people and sharing things is a lot more important than I realized before. I'm not saying that tangible things were a focus, because they've never been a great focus. But, if I go back to teaching, making sure that if we take this trip, that the kids will have something to remember when they get home. And it won't be necessarily a trophy. It won't be necessarily, a souvenir, but it would be the memory of the experience that we had while we were there. Same with the camp, and same at home. So if I'm taking a trip to LA to see my son, let's make sure we do some things together that 5 years from now we're going to remember when.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question about the experiences.
Oh, that definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last but not least question is, knowing the knowledge you have now, what would you have told your younger self? Whether that's your younger self just picking up piano or clarinet for the first time, whether that's your younger self starting Athena Camp for the first time, or even your younger self being on the podium for the first time.
Oh, wow. What would I tell my younger self? I would say keep asking questions and keep listening to the old folks. Because even though they may give you advice that you think is just the crazy, like, why in the world would they say, 99% of the time they're probably right. And so, just keep listening and learning and paying attention to the small details that make things work and make things happen. It took me a while to figure that part out, that it's all the little details that make the big things work. So that's probably what it would be. Pay attention more to the minute details, because that makes the bigger things work easier and faster.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again for being on the show. Before I forget, where can our listeners find you, find Athena Camp?
So we are online at athenacamp.com. So everything is there for the honor band, for the summits, for the summer camp. Registration is open. Everything is right there. And on Instagram and Facebook at Athena Music Camp.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Femme Forte. Femme Forte is produced and hosted by me, Amanda DeFries. Music is by Humans Win. To learn more about our guests, sponsors, and to get more resources, go to femfortepodcast.com and follow us on social media at Femme Forte Podcast. Femme Forte is sponsored by Ultimate Drillbook. UDB app modernizes marching band. Spend less time, have more fun, and achieve at a higher level. Just upload your drill from Pyware into the UDB app, and everyone in your band gets animations with your show music, precise pathways, synced music, notes, props, and so much more. It's just easier. Head to ultimatedrillbook.com and use code FEMFORTE when you order to get 20% off UDB App Pro.